Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's review, we've got a milk stout review, and it's two different brewers. Both of them are flavored. One's an imperial, one's a standard. Both beers I've never had before. I might have had one or two beers from both these brewers, but it's been so long I really don't remember what they're all about. So I'm very much looking forward to jumping into this. Both these beers are Tavour sourced. The first one we have on the docket for today is Heathen Brewing's Mega Mint. This is an imperial milk stout, clocks in at 9% ABV, and it was brewed with both chocolate, cacao nibs, and mint. They are based out of Vancouver, Washington. Beer number two is Weldworks Brewing. This is called French Toast Stout. It's a milk stout, 7.1% ABV, and it's been brewed with maple syrup, cinnamon, and vanilla. Being milk stouts, both of these, of course, brewed with milk sugar, lactose. Weldworks Brewing is based out of Greeley, Colorado. So two completely different directions, one imperial, one not, one minty, one more breakfast dessert-like, but they both sound awesome, and I can't wait to jump in. So we're going to do exactly that. Starting with the Heathen Brewing's Mega Mint, this one clocks in at 9% ABV. Okay, so jumping right in with the first beer of today's flavored milk stout review, we have got Heathen Brewing's Mega Mint. This is an imperial milk stout, clocks in at 9% ABV. It was brewed with both cacao nibs and mint. They are based out of Vancouver, Washington. So first thing first, in terms of label art, it looks pretty gnarly on the front of this label. It's got what appears to be some kind of farm equipment, and there's a battle going on out in the field. It's probably a little hard to tell on the camera, but I'm doing my best to angle it away from glare. So that's kind of the scene on there. One other item of note is they do give you their full ingredient list on the side. So specifically, for malt, they're using 2-row biscuit, chocolate, honey, and midnight wheat. So a blend of barley and wheat. Hops, they've got Magnum, Willamette, and then for the adjuncts, they've got Ghana cacao nibs, fresh heirloom, black Mitchum, peppermint. So that's the ingredients, plus lactose, of course. And then the other thing you probably already noticed, this is a wax dip bottle, so I cheated a little bit. I already scored around, so hopefully I can just very quickly get this cap off and we can jump right in instead of you watching me struggle to get through the wax to get a cap off so we can dive into the beer. Okay, so we've got this cracked. Let's get this poured right in the glass. Oh, it's a nice looking beer, very dark, reasonably thick. Not obscene, but it's got some nice thickness to it. 9%, looks about right. Formed an okay head. It's not on tap. Oh boy, this is pungent. I can smell it from here. Good foot and a half, 2 feet away. This is very intense aroma. In terms of color, it's pitch black. This is a classic imperial. Actually, I didn't expect it to have quite that depth of color at just 9%, but it's lovely. It's absolutely pitch black. Head, we already saw. It's going to have maybe a little tab and mostly just bubbles floating, but let's give it a deep sniff over it. Oh, wow, this smells amazing. Yeah, that smells really, really nice. Okay, so you can smell on full force this very deep, rich roast malt bill. It's also got a little bit of a boozy hint to it, and for sure you can smell the chocolate from the Ghana cacao nibs and that little kiss of mint. So it does kind of smell like, almost like a beer version of, say, a Girl Scout Thin Mint cookie or a grasshopper cookie or whatever they're called. But this chocolate mint, it smells very nice. I've never had a beer with mint added, and this is such a no-brainer combination, especially for a milk stout. Wow, I don't know if there other brewers have done this before, but it smells great. So I'm going to jump right in. Let's do it. That's very nice. That's very, very nice. Oh, wow. The longer it goes, the more interesting this malt bill becomes, and these flavors kind of open up. All right. This is very, very nice. I'm really enjoying the subtlety of the adjuncts. So it's not overboard. This, for me, is one of the better balanced milk stouts I've had. They can be a little too intense oftentimes. And you know, some people really like that, and I enjoy those too. But for my money, milk stout or not, and a beer with adjunct ingredients or not, really, especially for a style like a stout, an imperial stout, the malt bill is the star of the show. The other stuff is just like added bonus on the side that you get with the beer. But it really is a style all about the malt bill. Just like IPAs are a style all about the hops, stouts are about this malt bill. And this beer really, really tastes fantastic. I mean, something fantastic. So the first thing I noticed was when you get it in your mouth, the bulk of the aromas that I was picking up do make their presence known. But it comes in stages, and the way that it approaches itself is first you get this richness and this slight sweetness up front, and it's quite intense. And then that grows into even deeper, richer layers of malt, and then kind of this wheat back that they put in makes its presence known, and it starts mixing with that. And then these biscuity flavors start coming out as well. So you get kind of classic coffee-like undertones and a lot of chocolate undertones, and it starts mixing with this biscuit-like quality. And then it really does start to kind of take on this chocolate thin mint-like cookie quality to it. And the chocolate comes in and mixes really with the chocolate malts and the other deep malts that came in there, and it adds this chocolate undertone to it. But it's not overboard, it's not super intense. And there's this slight sweetness. It's not overly sweetened for a milk stout. And then the mint comes in, and it's this subtle little mint kiss. So it doesn't overpower everything. Mint, as you probably know, is a very pungent ingredient. It can very quickly overpower anything. It doesn't matter if you're cooking with it, if you're brewing with it, using it in tea, coffees, it doesn't matter. It's a very, very pungent flavor and aroma. And the balance that they got in this, it's just absolutely perfect for my money. This would have been so easy to get out of control and to go overboard, but they reined it in, and what they left you with is just this fantastic stout base that has this nice chocolate and mint addition without its intensity over, you know, consuming the malt, which is really the story of this. I absolutely love the balance of this. I'm going to jump back in for body and mouthfeel and start to pick out some of these flavors again. Body's a nice full medium, maybe on the bottom border of medium heavy, but I'd say it's a very full medium. It feels nice, it feels appropriate for the ABV at 9%. Mouthfeel, it's classic stout. It's got a little resistance to it, a little thickness. You agitate it around the palate, it does get quite creamy, but it doesn't foam up. It's not foamy creamy, it just becomes super, super silky. In terms of what these flavors do, it's just so stinking delicious on each sip. I just want to keep drinking this. Exactly what I described up front. I definitely got that right on the first sip. And really, what you probably may want to know is where this chocolate and the mint come in. They come in after about the 4 or 5 second mark. This chocolate starts to creep in the 3, 4, and then it gets progressively more intense and mixes with this malt bill. And then the mint starts to come in. It's very subtle. So it's very much malt on top, chocolate underneath that, and the mint's just underneath this is this little side perk. And the balance of it is just so excellent and kind of maintains that all the way to the end. In terms of length of finish, for a stout, it's pretty long. It's not IPA long, but in the realm of stouts, yeah, I'd say this is pretty long. It's not as long as some, like those Hubbard's Cave milk stouts, flavored milk stouts. They typically have very, very long finishes, but they're super pungent with their adjuncts. This is much more reined in. Really what I'm left with lingering on the end of this is this deep, rich roast classic stout malt bill with just a little bit of the cocoa and a little bit of that mint underneath. So really it stacks top 50 to 65% of the flavor experience almost throughout the entirety of it is malt, and then it's maybe 20 to 30%, give or take somewhere in there, or 15 to 25% chocolate, and maybe 5 to 10% mint. So it's overwhelmingly malt, and then maybe the bottom third is a combination of 2/3 chocolate, 1/3 mint. That's more or less how it shakes out. So it's very, very nice. And I can't overstate this. I know I mentioned it multiple times, but I really need to reiterate. The balance on this is exceptional. If you're not a super big fan of over-the-top flavorings in beers or in your stouts and you really appreciate the style for its malt bill, this is one I would definitely recommend. The chocolate and the mint are really just this added extra bonus, and it's just this wonderful light kiss that works perfectly with this beautifully put together malt bill. And the hops they put in here, it's got enough that you get a little lingering bitters as well. You're going to naturally get some of that from the malt bill, but they definitely did their job. Overall, this is a fantastic milk stout. I absolutely love it. I'm going to take my time, sip on this, come up with my scores. When we come back, we will get to the second beer of today's milk stout review. That is Weldworks Brewing French Toast Stout. That one clocks in at 7.1% ABV. Okay, so jumping into beer number 2 of today's milk stout review, we have got Weldworks Brewing Company's French Toast Stout. It's a milk stout, as they both are. This one's not imperial though, just standard, 7.1% ABV, so it's still getting pretty high up there for a stout. This one's been brewed with maple syrup, cinnamon, and vanilla, of course lactose or milk sugar. They are based out of Greeley, Colorado. So starting out, in terms of can art, it's got a very clean design, but it's got some French toast kind of dancing in a pair on the bottom, kind of get you in the mood for what you're about to jump into. So without further ado, let's just get this bad boy cracked gently. All right, and pour it right in the glass. Okay, pouring this one, noticeably it looks a bit thinner. This doesn't look super thick at all, but it looks nice. Nice deep brown. I don't expect it's going to be pitch black. It doesn't look it as I'm pouring it, but it is forming a pretty decent head there, which not poured on tap. I'm very impressed by that. It's very, very carbonated. I can see it going crazy, so I don't think the head's going to stick around too long, but let's just hold this up visually. Actually, even though it looked just a deep brown, this is actually pitch black. I am holding this up to my LED set lights. I cannot see a hint of light through this beer. But what I can see is that carbonation I can see working on the head. It's very carbonated. It's very fine champagne-like bubbles, super, super fine. And I can see it clinging to the sides of the glass and working its way up. So I'm sure it's all in there and not just coming off the sides. It's very active. Yeah, you can see this head dying down quickly. Nonetheless, let's give this a sniff. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That positively smells exactly like French toast. That smells exactly like French toast. The blend of the maple and the cinnamon and the slight hint of vanilla, that's background. It adds this kind of richness to it. Obviously, French toast is a recipe. Everybody has their variants, but essentially you take the bread, you soak it in egg, and then you toast it up just like you would do toast. And then it cooks the egg into the bread so it soaks in, so it makes it really thick, really rich, really hearty. And then you pour over maple syrup. Traditionally, you could use any kind of syrup, crushed fruit, purees. And typically, it's going to be dusted with confectioner's sugar or powdered sugar if you prefer. That and then cinnamon. Cinnamon pairs well with maple. And that's the traditional kind of flavor combination, the cinnamon and the maple. Some people will go crazy. They'll add dollops of, vanilla ice cream, all sorts of crazy dessert styles. But that's the basis of French toast. And this smells exactly like it. It smells so good. I can't wait to jump in. As expected, that head did not stick around too long. It was just too highly carbonated. It just destroyed it from the bottom up. But it smells great. It looks great. Let's jump right in. Oh my word. Oh man. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That tastes just like French toast in the best possible way. But it is French toast beer. So make no mistake, this lovely dark stout malt backbone absolutely makes its presence known. In fact, that's the very first thing you taste. As you're swishing around the palate, you taste that malt bill. As you swallow, you taste that malt bill. Not until 2 seconds later, give or take, does the French toast quality open up and it just explodes forward. It's very intense. It's just immediate maple and cinnamon. Now the vanilla, just like in the aroma, it's very background. It's just adding this richness to it in the back. And of course, French toast, of course, has bread and it has eggs, but you're not tasting anything like that. You could make an argument that elements of the malt bill are kind of playing up that toast side as well, but there's positively no sense of egg. That would just be repugnant in beer. So I'm glad that they left all of that influence out. But the main flavors of the actual dish, absolutely spot on. Really, as I'm thinking on it, the cinnamon and maple is almost just the perfect balance, 50-50. And then you're getting this, the vanilla as this background richness, which really to me kind of plays up on the richness of the dish. So it doesn't taste like eggs. It's vanilla, obviously, and that's a good thing. But the vanilla plays up that heavy, denser, richness side to me, which really going with these more sweet side with the cinnamon and the maple, because it's a milk stout, it's got that lactose in it, so it does have a sweetness. That really kind of seals the deal for me for cementing the idea of French toast in beer form, and I absolutely love it. This is just spot on delicious. It tastes just like classic French toast flavors, and I am positively loving it. Okay, before I jump back in, I should also note that yes, this is a milk stout. Yes, it has the sweeter ingredients, the syrup, the cinnamon playing up the sweet side, but it's not overtly sweet. This is not pungent like, oh God, it's just, you know, it's not insane. It is exceptionally well balanced. Every bit of it, the malt bill, the flavors that they put in, the lactose that was added, it was all thought out meticulously. That much is clear. This is really well done beer. I'm going to jump in for body and mouthfeel and explore these flavors again. Body is medium. It's a solid medium. It's a strong medium. I wouldn't say it's medium heavy or getting near the border, but it's a solid, strong medium, which really for 7.1%, that's pretty appropriate. Maybe I thought it might be a little bit heavy, but heavier than that, but 7.1, it's not super high. It's high for a standard stout, but remember this, you know, this is a milk stout and it's flavored, so it's got a little extra structure to it. It does feel heavier as you're drinking it, as you're feeling it in your palate. So this is definitely one to be sipped on and enjoyed over the long term. So I fully expect this to get even more intense as it warms up beyond British cellar temperature, 55 degrees Fahrenheit. I target all of my beers at 55, and that's when I pull them and go in for my review. So I keep my temperature consistent on all of my beer reviews. And it does pay dividends because it keeps one element constant, because everything about it is not constant. You know, every beer, all the adjuncts, all the styles, whatever it may be. Some people, oh man, you'll drink a lager at that temperature. That's crazy. You'll drink a stout. Yeah, I'll drink a lager, a stout, a sour. It doesn't matter. A barley wine, a porter, an IPA. I'll drink a brown ale, a red ale. It doesn't matter to me the style. British cellar temperature, 55 degrees for me is the perfect ideal temperature. And there's a reason that it's like known as a thing, 55 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what the Celsius equivalent is. I'm American. I don't know that system. I know the imperial system, but I can tell you it's fantastic. And this is definitely going to get even more layers of depth the greater that it warms up. But my initial reaction at 55 degrees, maybe is 56, 57 now. It's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, the body and the mouthfeel are really great. I really appreciate it on this beer. The mouthfeel for me, this is classic stout, though it definitely does have a thickness to it. It's got maple syrup in it, so I'm not that surprised, but based on the ABV 7.1, that's not that high. It does have a bit more thickness than I anticipated. Now, when you agitate it around the palate, it does, as with most beers, get a bit creamier. It does get a bit thicker still, but it's not over the top. It doesn't foam up. It just adds this layer of silkiness. That's kind of how, in my experience, about 60-65% of beers will do that when you agitate them, and 40 to 35% won't. They'll get very foamy. This is one that just gets silkier. So it's very nice. It's very pleasurable on the palate. I'm going to jump back in one more time for final thoughts on this flavor profile, but man, this is just delicious. I wish you could taste this. If you're a fan of French toast, you owe it to yourself to get your hands on this beer. They nailed it. They absolutely nailed it. It's that malt bill, then that boom, rush of maple, cinnamon, that undertone of vanilla, and it just holds there. It's an immediate peak in intensity, and it holds there, and it holds there, and it holds there. It's a good to 8 to 10 seconds before it finally starts to tail off, and it's a very gradual curve. I'll have to move my hand over to show the curve, the shape of the curve, because it's very, very gradual. It's got a long, long finish. These flavors are pungent, and it keeps going, keeps going. Very, very long finish for a stout. Very, very long. And honestly, for me, that's an absolute boon because it is just so bloody delicious. I wish you could taste this beer. Folks, this is a home run. I'm going to take my time, sip on this, come up with my scores. When we come back, we will get both beers ranked from top to bottom. Okay, now that we've gotten to enjoy both of these beers, we're going to get them ranked, starting with the Heathen Brewing's Mega Mint. This was the Imperial Milk Stout of the bunch, 9% ABV brewed with chocolate, cacao nibs, and mint. They are based out of Vancouver, Washington. So starting with the aroma on this, it was positively huge. I could smell it from, gosh, probably pushing 2 feet away. The closer you got, the more intense it was. And it smelled very balanced. Even the aromas that came through, while they were pungent, they were clearly well balanced. I could get full malt bill and the underlying chocolate and the underlying mint, and it was just great. It gets a 10 out of 10. For the taste, I loved it. This was really, for me, an Imperial Milk Stout that was all about balance overall. Like every aspect of it just was so well thought out. I thought for sure, you know, with an ingredient bill like this, kind of billing itself how it did, thought, gosh, this could be out of hand, out of control, but I'll still try it anyway. Never had a beer with mint, but they were very restrained, and really it was mostly about the malt bill, a little bit of lactose for a little bit of sweetness, a little chocolate to mix with the chocolate malts, and a little bit of mint, but it all worked together, and it was just stunning. I give it a 10 out of 10. The body on this beer was very, very big. For 9%, it was certainly well above average, but it wasn't quite top tier. It gets a 9 out of 10 here. Mouthfeel. Mouthfeel on this beer was a similar story. It was close to perfection, but not quite. It was rather creamy, rather silky, and it did have a good bit of resistance, but I would have liked just a little more so from a 9% ABV beer. It gets a 9 out of 10. For the finish was nice on this. It was well above average in terms of length. Stouts aren't normally known for having the longest finishes in the world, but on a big Imperial that's got flavor added, and kind of with the intensity of the malt and the flavors that came through, I did kind of expect it to run a little longer than it did. But it was still well above average. It gets an 8 out of 10. For the head and retention, it was just okay. Really low end of average for me. It formed a little bit and then it collapsed very, very quickly. I would have liked it to bloom up a little better, but again, port of home, it is what it is. It gets a 4 out of 10. For the appearance, this was very, very dark. I mean, classic Imperial stout, pitch black, no light through it. It gets a 10 out of 10. For the balance, I mentioned this across a few other categories, and balance as its own category, no secret here. It gets a perfect score, 10 out of 10. Feeling in the intangible. I loved it. I was hoping that I would like this beer, but honestly, I didn't know what to expect. And frankly, I thought that they made a really, really nice beer here. Very interesting, very unique in the realm of beers, and it very much worked in the form of an Imperial Milk Stout. 10 out of 10 for me. Finally, as an example of the style, I nitpicked a few categories. You know, it is what it is. Really, head and retention is where it lost the bulk of points. Everything else was negligible. Frankly, I thought the beer was so great. I didn't dock any points here. As an Imperial Milk Stout, I thought it was fantastic. Gets a perfect 10 out of 10. That brings the total score on Heathen Brewing's Mega Mint to a 90 out of 100. So no question here, this is well above average, and one I definitely think is worth seeking. If you're a fan of mint, trust me, it works in this beer. Moving on to beer number 2. This is Weldworks Brewing's French Toast Stout. The milk stout, just standard, 7.1% ABV on this one. They're based out of Greeley, Colorado. This one was brewed with maple syrup, cinnamon, and a vanilla. Of course, lactose, as they both did, milk stouts. Starting with the aroma. The aroma on this was nice. It had above average pungency, but not quite as pungent, especially considering the ingredients that they put in there. Normally, maple sticks out super, super strongly in a beer. It didn't quite punch its way through in this one, but it smelled nice, above average. It gets a 7 out of 10. For the taste, wow, I really loved this one too. Frankly, I thought they nailed French toast. They really, really, really did a great job of capturing the essence of French toast in beer form. It gets a perfect 10 out of 10 for me. For the body was okay. It was above average, but it wasn't as robust as I was hoping. 7.1 isn't that high of an ABV overall, but it's on the higher side for a standard stout. It just was a little lackluster compared to top tier, but it was certainly above average. It gets a 7 out of 10. For the mouthfeel. Now, the body wasn't quite as robust as I would have liked, but the mouthfeel definitely had a bit more resistance to it, and also had this really nice classic stout creamy quality to it. I gave it 8 out of 10 here. I really enjoyed it. For the finish on this beer was exceptionally long. The malt bill came through clearly. The maple punched its way through with wanton abandon, and the cinnamon did as well. The vanilla was very much a background. It added this kind of richness to it, which I really appreciated. Some people will put a splash of cinnamon or vanilla extract as they're whipping up their French toast, and I really thought all the ingredients paired well in this. And it really helped extend out the end of the length of each sip, much longer than you would anticipate. I give it a perfect 10 out of 10 here. For the head and retention. This beer did not do a great job forming a head or retaining it all. It barely formed one, and it was gone in a matter of seconds. Just gets a 2 out of 10. The appearance on this beer was fantastic. This is not an imperial, and it looked much lighter brown comparative to the first as I was pouring it. But once it was in the glass, this was actually pitch black. It was a lovely, lovely stout. Gets a perfect 10 out of 10. For the balance. The balance on this beer was exceptional, and I said it in a few other categories just as with the first. Both of these were exceptionally well balanced, and for this one, it kind of did the same thing with the French toast flavor ingredients that the first one did with the chocolate and the mint. The malt bill was present, and it had the right amount of cinnamon and maple and vanilla to work together to create the flavor sensation they were going for without any of it going overboard or drowning anything else out. They nailed it. It gets a 10 out of 10. For the feeling and the intangible, I loved this beer. I did. I loved both these beers. They were both distinctly different, but both of these, for me, subjectively, get a 10 out of 10. Finally, as an example of the style. Really, this beer lost some bigger points here in the head and retention. Outside of that category, it scored very, very high almost across the board. Frankly, yeah, it did lose some points, but again, for the same reasons as I rated the first one, I think this was such a strong showing for what they were trying to do with this beer in this style that I give it full points as an example. It gets a 10 out of 10, which brings the total score on Weldworks Brewing's French Toast Stout to an 83 out of 100. So all total, we're only looking at a 7-point spread here, and really, if you took away the missing points from the head and retention on both beers, they'd both score much, much higher. I mean, make no mistake, these are top tier. I just have to rank what I experience in the various categories. It is what it is. But both of these, if you're a fan, if either of them sound good to you, I do recommend trying them. You can't go wrong with either beer. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to keep in the loop when our videos go live to YouTube, you can just click the notification bell icon. It's right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.